You probably found this video because you know someone that you can't quite explain. Whether this person is a lover, a friend, a coworker, an acquaintance, or even a parent, you can't quite put your finger on what's wrong and why they act the way they do. Something just doesn't feel right about them, something just feels a bit off, so you set out to the internet seeking help in explaining who, what, when, where, how, and more importantly, why they act the way they do. If that's you, then welcome to my channel, The Narcissist Revealed, where we discuss topics related to narcissism. Understanding how narcissism works can be your biggest defense in getting your life back and understanding their next move. After all, they're all different, but as you'll see, the patterns are the same. So before we get into the details of narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, we must first understand that there is a difference between someone who has narcissistic traits versus someone who has narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissism is a personality trait that every person possesses to some degree. Like any characteristic, it exists on a spectrum. People on the lowest end of the spectrum will have some narcissistic traits, and people on the highest end of the spectrum are those that are classified with NPD. A diagnosis of NPD would typically be made by a healthcare professional. However, these individuals will typically not seek professional help. Many go undiagnosed. There is a big difference between the occasional bout of narcissism versus the continued thought process and actions that make up the actual disorder. Let me give you a quick example of someone exhibiting the narcissistic trait of self-centeredness. Let's say you have two friends, Amy and Brenda. Amy asks Brenda for a ride to and from an appointment. Brenda accepts, thinking the appointment will be over by 8 p.m. Not to mention, she has to work the following day, so understandably, she doesn't want to be up too late. Well, Brenda falls asleep awaiting Amy's call. Brenda is later awakened at 1 a.m. in the morning by Amy asking for a ride home. If Amy had been thinking more about her friend instead of her own immediate needs, Amy could have gotten clearer instructions from the person procuring the appointment to ensure it would have been completed within the specified time. If she found that it was going to go beyond 8, she could have called Brenda prior to that time and checked with Brenda to see if she would still be available to pick her up at 1 a.m. in the morning. She could have found another ride and not bothered Brenda at all. Had she gathered the appropriate information prior to the appointment, she could have made sure she scheduled an appointment that worked better with Brenda's schedule. At the time, Amy's immediate needs only concerned Amy. Now, this alone doesn't make Amy a narcissist. However, the trait is associated with the narcissistic trait of self-centeredness. Amy may just have not realized she was inconveniencing Brenda because she didn't know any better. It may not have bothered her because she would have done the same for Brenda no matter what time the appointment ended. And lastly, she may have already done the same for Brenda, so it didn't appear to be a big deal. Now let's take the story a step further. Brenda gets the call from Amy at 1 a.m. in the morning. Hello? Hey Brenda, it's Amy. Why are you calling so late? I thought you were going to be done around 8. I'm so sorry. I didn't expect the appointment to run so late and couldn't call. Can you still pick me up? If not, no worries at all. I totally understand. I'll find another ride. No hard feelings. Amy finds another ride. She feels terrible about waking Brenda up late at night. No hard feelings. Both ladies move on as BFFs for life. No love lost. Amy is not a narcissist. The next day, Brenda and Amy talk. Amy is apologetic. She understands that Brenda had to work and takes responsibility for the miscommunication. Plot twist. Now let's recreate the scenario as if Amy has NPD. Hello? Hey Brenda, it's Amy. Why are you calling so late? I thought you were going to be done around 8. I didn't expect the appointment to run so late and couldn't call. And you already agreed to pick me up, so can you still come pick me up or not? I mean, I guess. I'm just really sleepy. Can you give me about 10 minutes to throw some water on my face and wake up before I drive over? I have to go to work in a couple hours. Well, Brenda, you know you're my only ride. Yeah, I know. I just didn't expect it to run so late. So you're not going to pick me up? I mean, it's not my fault they didn't get done until 1 a.m. I'm tired too, you know. You're not the only one with the job, and I don't appreciate you making me feel bad. "Oh, I wasn't trying to make you feel bad, Amy. I'm sorry. I'm on my way." The next day, the saga continues. Amy is now mad because Brenda didn't want to pick her up, even though she did. She called a mutual friend, Carol, and tells Carol how terrible Brenda treated her. "Yeah, I asked Brenda to take me to my appointment yesterday, and she said she would, yet she was really nasty when my appointment was over, and I told her I was ready to be picked up, even though she had already agreed to it." "Oh, really? That doesn't sound like Brenda." "Well, it was. You don't even know her very well, and nobody even wants to ride in that bucket of a car of hers anyway. My car is way better. I always have better cars than her." "Well, what time did your appointment end?" "1, but that's not my fault." 1 a.m.? Doesn't Brenda have to work at 6? Amy hangs up. She's now mad at Carol because she didn't agree with her. Amy then reaches out to another friend, Dana, her flying monkey, who agrees with her that Brenda was nasty. That's all the ammunition she needs to now block Brenda from her phone and social media accounts because she wants to teach Brenda a lesson for treating her badly. Brenda tries to reach out several times and doesn't understand what happened or why Amy's mad. Amy goes on not speaking to Brenda for 6 months, the silent treatment. After some time passes, Amy finally decides the punishment is enough and gives Brenda a call. Not to mention, Amy's car is broken down again and she needs another ride. Amy calls Brenda after 6 months of blocking all of Brenda's attempts to reach out. "Hi, Brenda. How's it going? You'll never believe who I ran into last week." Amy acts as if nothing ever happened. Brenda is confused. So this brings me to the answer to the ultimate question, what is a narcissist? Webster's defines a narcissist as an extremely self-centered person who has an exaggerated sense of self-importance. In the story, recall how Amy didn't care about the fact that Brenda had to work in a couple hours. She only cared about her immediate needs of getting from her appointment. And she didn't believe Brenda had the right to feel any other way but happy about doing it because of Amy's sense of self-entitlement and importance. Some of the other characteristics of a narcissist can be defined as constant need for admiration, meaning they constantly need to be showered with attention, whether good or bad. No matter how much they get, they'll never get enough. Imagine trying to fill a jar with water that has no bottom or removing the water from a boat with a hole in it. It's an exhausting task that never ends. Grandiose, an unrealistic feeling of superiority where they consider themselves unique or better than others. In the story of Amy and Brenda, recall how Amy looked down on Brenda because she had a better car. It doesn't matter that Amy's car is always in the shop and is not reliable, and she continues to have to rely on her friends for transportation. Inflated sense of self-importance. Recall how Amy felt entitled and justified in calling Brenda for a ride at 1 a.m. and didn't take any responsibility for her actions. It's always someone else's fault. A lack of empathy. Exploiting others with guilt or shame. Recall how Amy tried to make Brenda feel bad for being too tired to pick her up, and at the end had Brenda apologizing and feeling like she did something wrong. Their lack of empathy also makes it impossible to put themselves into someone else's shoes and analyze how they would feel if the same thing happened to them. Overly sensitive to criticism. Recall how Amy was offended by Brenda's response, even though Brenda didn't say anything directly that would have offended her. She was only expressing that she didn't realize the appointment was going to run late. Amy immediately took offense as if Brenda was blaming her for making the appointment run late, then further let her know that she was also tired of having been on her own appointment all night and that she also had a job, and further blamed Brenda for making her feel bad. Though we didn't touch on it in the story between Amy and Brenda, they tend to have chronic feelings of emptiness or boredom, often manufacturing drama just to fill the void. These are just some of the main characteristics. However, there are many more traits that can be added to this list. So now you may wonder, how does someone become a narcissist? There are a few different schools of thought on how narcissism came to be. Some think it's caused by environmental factors, maybe being neglected as a young child or a traumatic experience that happened at a young age. It's even believed that it may have occurred from being overly praised as a young child, given a feeling of being special, unique, or superior. Some believe that it's genetics at play and passed down from one family member to the next, and still yet some believe that it's likely a combination between both environmental factors and genetics. Either way, through a series of events, often in early childhood, they adopted maladaptive coping mechanisms that may have helped them hide their vulnerable, emotionally stunted, hurt being inside. Unfortunately, what we also know is that there is no cure for narcissistic personality disorder. With treatment, it can improve, but it cannot be cured. In addition, the bigger issue is that most people with this condition will not go for treatment because they truly believe that they don't have an issue. They believe the issue is everyone else's. For more tips about this topic, please like and subscribe. The more you know, the better prepared you will be to handle any scenario brought forth. And now to the next video.